another confirmation today from Israel that, well, 2 rockets were fired from Gaza. Sirens in Kisufim, the area near Kisufim, that was coming from the Israeli Broadcasting Authority. Israel said that intercepted one of them, and one of them fell in an open area. The Israeli Home Front Command said that the air siren sounded in Kisufim due to rocket fire from the Gaza Strip. What did that show you? Well, that shows you that, ladies and gentlemen, the operation failed. How many times do we have to say it? And again, you know, the people will tell you, oh, look, isn't Gaza destroyed? Isn't this destroyed? Look at how many people. Yeah, of course. Again, to cover up the failure, to cover up the fact that there's still fierce, and there will remain fierce resistance against the state of Israel, because the problem is not the resistance, the problem is the apartheid supremacy of Zionism, controlling Palestine through mass-scale terror, sponsored, supported, nurtured, and legitimized by neo-colonial states to this day. And unfortunately, even the talk about the solution and the day after, they are not really talking about the substantial and the most important and crucial points. And the biggest point here is, how can there be a state founded on supremacy, violence, mass expulsion, ethnic cleansing, and genocide in the 21st century? How can a country not have equal human rights? How can a country conduct this now? This is not just an Israeli action here. This is the action of the forces behind Israel. Those who established Israel still nurture and support Israel. And closer to Palestine, those who don't take the action that is required to stop all of this ongoing suffering against the Palestinian people. Now, moving on to the front that has proven to be a front that is unbreakable, that tied its fate with the fate of Palestine, the Yemeni front. Yemen, after they started to conduct attacks on the state of Israel, whether it's through an embargo in the Red Sea, or attacking military bases, or attacking the Israeli air forces, up until we reach today, where they are declaring not only an embargo in the Red Sea, but also an aerial embargo on the state of Israel. They have proven from day one that they act based on principle, faith, and also their humanitarian obligations towards the people facing genocide, when other countries were only condemning and calling for and asking. No, Yemen and Ansarullah, they were taking action. They were taking action according to international law to prevent a genocide as confirmed by the ICJ against a war criminal who is wanted for the ICC, Benjamin Netanyahu. They previously continued to support the Palestinians up until a minute before the ceasefire took effect. In January, they were striking Israel up until the last second. And in their declarations, they were saying that this is in support of the Palestinian negotiator. So they're applying pressure on Israel. They're applying pressure on Israel up until the last second to show them that if you're not going to stop, it's not only Gaza you have to deal with, it's Yemen who you have to deal with. So what happened in Yemen in the past couple of days, and what's going to happen in the future with Yemen? Well, yesterday, while I was actually having a live stream, there was all of a sudden a report, sirens in Israel. And that was, we found out now, an attack coming from Ansarullah in Yemen. At 2 a.m. approximately, there were Houthi shellings on Israel, even after the third wave of attacks in 2 weeks in Yemen, clearly not phase these people. IDF spokesperson warned that a launch from Yemen had been detected, and minutes later, alarms were activated throughout the center, from the lowlands to Netanya, basically the majority of the central part of Israel. Several explosions were heard. The army updated that the missiles were intercepted. They were 2 missiles coming from Ansarullah in Yemen just past midnight against the genocide state. And not only that, they had another declaration earlier on today that we are going to have actually another operation, ladies and gentlemen, in the next few hours. Expect us. So one of the movement's leaders, Ansarullah, he had a post, and it was also reported on mainstream media as well, that we will carry out military operations against Ben Gurion Airport and other locations in the coming hours due to the escalation in Gaza. And that was from Nasruddin Amir, the deputy head of the Ansarullah movement. We will target Ben Gurion and other Israeli airports in the coming hours due to the recent escalation in the Gaza Strip. So whereas, everyone sees, okay, there's talks, there's development, look, something is happening, look, aid is going in. Yemen and Ansarullah, they don't wait and see things happening. They take action. They put their weight in. They put their weight to a level where they split the United States from Israel, at least in relation to the Red Sea. There's no longer a genocide coalition. They broke that coalition. That also shows you that there is, absolutely is, a split, some sort of a split between the United States and Israel, at least in relation to the Red Sea. The United States unilaterally went and spoke with Yemen, and they reached a deal with them, and that deal excluded Israel. How? Well, we're still seeing that. Ansarullah are still imposing an embargo in the Red Sea and are imposing an aerial embargo against Israel without any American action against them. As a matter of fact, the American side is saying that we will only take action against Yemen if Americans are targeted, showing that we are no longer interested in anything that happens between Yemen and Israel. That's why Benjamin Netanyahu went out earlier on today and said that we will fight in Yemen, we will fight other fronts on our own. If the Americans want to join, great, but if not, we will target them on our own. That proves that there is a level of disagreement between both of them. And from a United States perspective, that was bound to happen, because the risk from Ansarullah against the genocide coalition led by the United States in the Red Sea, it took its toll, clearly. It took its toll on all of the American aircraft carriers. And as a matter of fact, it reached a level where, according to national interest at least, Ansarullah almost took down an F-35. The Houthis almost shot down an F-35, and Washington is panicked. This was published 2 days ago in the National Interest, saying that Ansarullah have air defense capabilities that almost put the F-35 at risk of being taken down. Now, we know an F-18 Raptor went down. We know that many MQ-9s, approximately 20, went down, many other UAVs and drones of the United States. And we know that 4 aircraft carriers had to retreat from the Red Sea following attacks coming from Ansarullah in Yemen, showing how effective they are in relation to the attacks that were happening inside of the Red Sea. Therefore, the American administration decided that we can't really have any relation, any tie with Israel, because our forces are now at risk. Firstly, we took serious blows, despite the fact that Trump said also we landed severe blows on Yemen, and they bravely went through, brave, he was saying, and that he, trusts their word too. Whereas they didn't trust his word, by the way. Yemen was always saying, if they'll go back, we'll go back immediately. And this man does U-turns, and we're not necessarily trusting him. This proves, ladies and gentlemen, that that disagreement is there, that the Trump effect clearly had something to do with it. The reports that we've been hearing in the past 2 weeks about the American pressure indeed were there. The trip that Donald Trump had, skipping Israel and Benjamin Netanyahu, took its toll. We don't know much of what happened in the background, but it's clear that there was a pressure. Benjamin Netanyahu so far decided to submit to the pressure, at least in relation to allowing the aid in, and not through the newly founded Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, meaning a very big U-turn. Aid is going into the Gaza Strip with the previous mechanisms, with the previous aid groups that were operating inside of the Gaza Strip. Now, the big question is, will there be a breakthrough in relation to the ceasefire? This is the million-dollar question. Now, it's past midnight, Palestine time, Qatar time too. The move that did happen up until that ultimatum is, well, the aid going into Gaza, but a ceasefire hasn't been, an agreement hasn't been made public yet. So is there going to be something? Based on the moves that are coming from Benjamin Netanyahu, there's a very high likelihood. There's a very high likelihood that following this declaration, there will be another declaration. Why? Well, number one, Netanyahu just showed everyone, I did a U-turn. He refused to allow Ben Gvir and others in the cabinet to vote against allowing the aid in the current mechanism, therefore allowing the Palestinian resistance to get aid in and steal the aid, as they claim, right? Then the other statement from Benjamin Netanyahu saying that the discussions in Qatar, in Doha, are also revolving around ending the war. I mean, this should be a bombshell headline everywhere. We are talking about ending the war. The man has said that they're not negotiating an end to the war for all of this time. For the past 18 months, he was saying, no ending the war, no ending the war, no ending the war. Now, all of a sudden, he's like saying, as a humble statement, that we're also talking about Witkoff, and we're also talking about, ending the war, confirming, what we spoke about yesterday about these talks being unconditional talks that are indirect between the Palestinian negotiators and Israel, led by the Qatari mediators. The Qatari mediators were back and forth between each room, between the Palestinian side and the Israeli side. Because by the way, for those of you who don't know, Israel previously proposed to sit with Hamas directly for talks. But Hamas refused, saying we're not going to sit with them directly. That's why they're having the Qatari mediators. There are very, very big signs that something might be happening, but again, nothing has been reported. And of course, I'll still be monitoring everything from my perspective and giving you the latest updates as and when they happen.